It is said that the Philippines is part of the typhoon belt of the Pacific. True enough, the Philippines has in its eastern section the Pacific Ocean, which is active in terms of creating various typhoons. In turn, an average of about 20 typhoons hit the Philippines every year, some of which are very destructive. But, are you curious how several weather systems that visit the Philippines are created? In this video lesson, you will learn about some of the weather systems in the Philippines. At the end of this video lesson, you should be able to account for the occurrence of land and sea breezes, monsoons, and intertropical convergence zone or ITCZ. You have learned from your previous lesson that warm air has fewer molecules per unit volume, making them less dense than cold air. The same thing happens in Earth's atmosphere. When air masses are warm, they expand, become less dense, and rise. On the other hand, since cold air masses are denser, this moves down and sink. The presence of cold and warm air masses and the difference in air pressure are the result of the uneven heating on Earth. Uneven heating creates a difference in air pressure among latitudes on Earth. To be specific, the polar regions have high pressure while the equator has low pressure. These pressures kept the cold and warm air in constant motion to achieve equilibrium. Due to the low pressure in the equatorial region, it makes the air masses warm and rises to an area with high pressure. Consequently, the air masses from polar regions become cold and descend from high pressure to an area with low pressure. The movements of the air masses with different temperatures could lead to the formation of weather disturbances, such as hurricane, typhoon, and cyclone. These are commonly experienced by countries near or on the equator. Since the Philippines is located near the equator, we are greatly affected by these events. Somewhat, this dictates the weather patterns in the Philippines, which give rise to a set of weather systems in our country. First among these are the breezes. Breeze is the movement of the air either from the ocean to the land or from land to ocean, and during daytime or nighttime. The series of motions of the air between land and ocean exhibit a cycle that we call convection current. Let's talk about first the sea breeze. The sea breeze is characterized by a wind that blows from the ocean to land during daytime. In this phenomenon, because of the uneven heating on Earth, low pressure is formed an inch above the land while high pressure in the ocean. The formation of pressures above the land and ocean is initiated by the difference between their temperature or specific heat. What is specific heat? Specific heat is the ability of a substance to gather heat energy from the environment to increase its temperature. During the daytime, the land is warmer than the ocean due to its low specific heat, which means it doesn't need a large amount of energy to raise its temperature. On the other hand, the ocean has a high specific heat that requires it to acquire more heat energy to increase its temperature. In conclusion, the land warms and cools faster than the ocean due to its low specific heat. The molecular arrangement will explain why there is a difference in specific heat among substances. Let us study this figure. If you look closely at the molecular arrangement of these two substances, you will understand that because of solids molecules, which are closely packed, it will allow the heat energy to be transferred from molecule to molecule. The pressure above the land and ocean causes the air to be in constant motion. In order for the sea breeze to occur, the warm air near the land rises to an area with high pressure and will form a precipitate. The warm air that descended from the land becomes cool and will move to an area with a low pressure above the ocean. The cold air from the high pressure above the land becomes warm again and will return to the ocean. This time, it will sink back from the low pressure to an area with high pressure near the water. So, as the warm air reaches the area with high pressure, it will then cool down and will be blown from the ocean to the land, creating a sea breeze. The cool air that blows from the ocean makes the beach a desirable place to be during summer or hot days. The motion of the air in the sea breeze is the same as the land breeze. Land breeze is characterized by cool air that is blown from land to ocean during nighttime. This time, the ocean is warmer than the land since it has high specific heat. It slowly releases the heat energy that has been stored up during the daytime. In a land breeze, the warm air near the ocean rises above to an area with high pressure. The warm air that rose becomes cool and will move to an area with low pressure above the land. The air that warmed in the low pressure above the land will sink and cool down as it reaches the high pressure near the land. The cool air near the land will be blown towards the ocean, creating a land breeze. Have you ever asked yourself what causes too much rainfall even if there is no typhoon? Another weather system that affects the Philippines is the monsoons. A monsoon is a consistent wind pattern generated by a large weather system that lasts for a period of months and affects a large area of the planet. The specific agency in our government that studies the weather patterns in the Philippines is the PAGASA, or the Philippines Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration. Often, we mistakenly relate monsoon to weather, where in fact it is a wind system that affects our weather for months. Two monsoons affect our weather for months. First is the northeast monsoon and the other is the southwest monsoon. Let us first describe what a northeast monsoon is. A northeast monsoon, or hanging amihan, is characterized by cool and dry air that blows from high pressure in Central Asia to low pressure in the Australian continent. It is characterized by a slight to moderate rainfall and a cool wind affecting the eastern portion of the Philippines. Amihan often occurs from October to late March. However, it varies every year. The good thing about the northeast monsoon is that it gives us colder Christmas nights that make the season more festive. On the other hand, the southwest monsoon, or the hanging habagat, is the opposite of amihan. This weather system is characterized by a humid and dry climate that brings heavy rainfall and humid weather, especially with the provinces on the western portion of the Philippines. The wind of the southwest monsoon blows from the high pressure in the Australian continent to the low pressure in Central Asia. The gusty wind and heavy rainfall brought by the hanging habagat commonly lead to the formation of dangerous typhoons. This weather system enters the Philippines from late June to October. Consequently, the occurrence may still vary every year. Since the air masses from the southern and northern hemisphere near the equator are constantly in motion, their convergence forms another weather system which we call the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ. Presence of clouds in the atmosphere that brings thunderstorms is the result of the warmer air in the equator that rose. This movement of the warmer air leads the surrounding air to move into where it departed. The band of clouds in the equator that we see using a weather satellite is the Intertropical Convergence Zone. The southern portion of the Philippines experiences rainfall brought by the ITCZ in the months of December and January, while the northern portion experiences it during the months of June and July. The ITCZ follows the sun in that the position varies seasonally. It It moves north in the northern hemisphere, summer, and south in the northern hemisphere, winter. Therefore, the ITCZ is responsible for the wet and dry season in the tropics. In general, this weather system creates an opportunity and problem at the same time. However, the best thing we can do is to be prepared for the problem and enjoy the opportunities. That ends our lesson. I hope this simple video has helped you to know about the occurrence of different weather systems in the Philippines. Thank you for watching and have a day full of blessings.